Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. In recent weeks, I've been in contact with a retired former government electrical engineer, a person who wants to remain anonymous. This person performed research and development for NASA on the space shuttle, the NRO and CIA for satellites, and also worked with DARPA on robotics. Now, this person has provided recently a theory with regard to why the extraterrestrials are here. What are they doing here? And this person believes that they're here possibly for feeding on the blood of animals and humans, possibly. I did a podcast about this. I've talked about it a couple of times already. And now this person has provided me some more information, some calculations that this person has conducted to determine the number of these beings on this planet. And this person has estimated, based on the amount of cattle mutilations and human mutilations, that there are probably approximately 1,500 gray beings, which are these insect-like creatures, basically. There's the short grays, the tall grays, and the ones who, are in charge of those beings are these, what people have described as, praying mantis type looking things. And actually, this has been reported. The description of these beings has been reported in a lot of different UFO literature throughout the years. I could think of David Jacobs' The Threat, which was from the late 90s. It was a book written by Professor David M. Jacobs, who proposed that these beings are here to take over at some point. I mean, basically, Jacobs had interviewed a number of different people who have been abducted by aliens throughout the years, and he came to the conclusion that what it seems they're here for is to take over planet Earth at some point. And I'll get into that a little bit more. I just want to go through my anonymous source's latest calculations here. This was sent to me in an email, and this is what was written. I've done some very rough math and tried to compute how many grays we have on the planet at this time. There are three things required to make this estimate. Number one, number of cattle mutilations. Number two, number of human mutilations. Number three, amount of blood each gray consumes per day. I'd like to begin by discussing how I made these estimates, and please bear in mind that it's impossible to be precise. The first thing we need to understand is how information is controlled regarding these subjects. This has precedence in media manipulation going back to the time of the Civil War, but suffice to say that during the 20th century, the military has used threats to revoke the FCC license of broadcasters if they aired stories which were deemed to compromise national security. Freedom of the press notwithstanding, people have been intimidated, discredited, and even prosecuted for refusal to comply. And so, in the post-war climate of 1947, these threats proved quite effective at forcing major radio and TV stations to either disregard a story or portray it in a very negative light. In fact, almost all the cattle mutilation stories we know about have come to us from small newspapers and radio or TV stations after some rancher in a rural area reported it, and the story appeared before it could be discovered and suppressed by federal authorities, usually acting on orders from the military or the CIA. In 2001, a program of consolidation was initiated by the FCC to control and standardize all news stories which would appear in the United States media. This was done under leadership of Michael Powell, who was selected by none other than George W. Bush, the son of George H.W. Bush and former head of the CIA, and possibly the last president to be read in on the UAP issue. Michael Powell just happened to be the son of Colin Powell, bought and paid for political lackey who later supported the Gulf War, although he knew quite well that his testimony at the United Nations was completely false. Following this time, the entire United States media was consolidated into 5 major media organizations, who would each parrot whatever line of disinformation they were fed from Washington. At that point, only small local newspapers and radio stations would provide any sort of independent information. I relocated to a rural area of northern Arizona in 2016, where I became friends with the editor of the local newspaper. We shared an interest in the UAP phenomena, so in 2019, when a series of cattle mutilations began, we tried to look into them. A local rancher reported finding a mutilated cow. A few days later, another was discovered. These were investigated by the Sheriff's Department and the State Agricultural Department. Then, just a few weeks later, a group of 16 cattle were all found dead in a heap. At this point, the rancher refused to discuss the events, as did the local sheriff's office and the state agricultural people. The editor ran the story in the local paper, but it never received any wider coverage, and shortly afterwards, the story disappeared from the paper's archives entirely. This is just one example of how these cases are routinely suppressed. Therefore, for purposes of estimating the number of mutilations in the United States, I'm going to begin with a reported 1,000 cases per year, and I'm going to multiply that number by 20 to try to reach a correct figure. Once again, please remember that this is an extremely hard thing to quantify. Now, as to the human mutilations, naturally that number is even more difficult to estimate. I'm going to begin with FBI crime statistics and the number of persons reported missing per year. That number is 800,000. If we assume that almost all of these cases have mundane explanations, such as running away from the law or debts or the ex-wife, or joining a commune or a prepper group and living off-grid, we are still left with some that clearly do not have such a simple explanation. Someone with a good job, no debts, good health, and a happy family life, who begins driving to work but never arrives, and the car is found in a remote area, perhaps with the engine running and the doors locked from the inside, and no footprints in the surrounding soft earth, is more than a little suspicious. Add to that reports of a UAP in the area at that time, and it really doesn't take Einstein to figure it out. If we estimate just 1% of the 800,000 missing person reports are UAP related, that's 8,000 people who disappeared never to return. Based on these numbers, we can extend the United States estimates to a global figure. In the case of cattle, the United States has about 1/3 of the number of cattle in the world, making the number of mutilations around 60,000. If we apply the same standard to humans, and it is probably higher, we can extend our estimate of 8,000 to 24,000. Now let's do the math. Based on 1,000 reported cattle mutilations in the United States per year, and assuming that represents an actual 20,000 cattle mutilations per year, and extending that to 60,000 cattle mutilations per year worldwide, and 4.5 gallons of blood per cow, that's 260,000 gallons of bovine hemoglobin per year. Similarly, based on 800,000 missing person reports in the United States per year, and assuming just 1% are human mutilations, that's 8,000 in the United States each year. And assuming we extend that to 24,000 globally per year at 1 gallon of blood per human, that's 24,000 gallons of blood per year. Therefore, the total quantity of blood harvested each year is 284,000 gallons. If we estimate a half gallon per parasite, or 568,000 meals per year, and divide that by 365 days, then we can see approximately 1,500 of these creatures are now feeding, and approximately 15 people are murdered by them every day. It may be a very small percentage of the Earth's population, but it seems to be growing. What we really need is accurate figures on the problem, but of course that's classified information and virtually impossible to come by. Does anyone remember the Flushing Meadows Zoo incident of 1987? You won't find much about it today. A UAP was seen over the zoo, and by the way, just a little stop here. Flushing Meadows it's a zoo in New York. A UAP was seen over the zoo, and the following day employees were shocked to find every animal dead. They were all mutilated as if dissected, and the blood was drained from every one of them. The cages were still locked and no alarms had gone off. The zoo was closed for remodeling, and when it reopened a year later, there were new cages with all new animals. Nobody ever asked what had become of the previous animals. I guess if someone or something wanted a sample of animals found on this planet, a zoo would be the logical place to look. Now, I just want to add here, and this doesn't even include the figures that this person is including here, doesn't include the mutilations of other animals. I've been doing my own research into this, and it's more than just cattle. I mean, there's plenty of horses, hundreds and hundreds of horses every year that get mutilated like this, and sheep, all kinds of animals, even some wild animals are found in this shape. So the number could be a lot more than this, actually. But based on just the cattle mutilations and the human mutilations, this person has determined that it's that would probably feed about 1,500 of these parasitic aliens. It's a gruesome idea. It's a gruesome thought. But again, we don't know why they're here, and this is a feasible, reasonable explanation. And there's a lot more to it, actually, when you really think about it. Speaking of, I was talking earlier about David Jacobs' book, The Threat, and he wrote some other books too, but I really like The Threat. It's a frightening book in a lot of ways. It's just, but he never really came to a conclusion. Like in that book, he came to the conclusion, if you read the whole book, right, you get to the end of that book, he came to the conclusion that the plans of these beings, in the end, is basically to take control of the planet, the whole planet, with only one government, with the insects in charge, and actually the praying mantis types, the ones calling all the shots. And the future of Earth under this plan that these beings have, is basically, it involves the aliens themselves and the abductees, but there's nothing about the non-abductees. And nobody really knows how many people are getting abducted by aliens, right? There's who knows? It's I'm sure it's in the millions, right? But probably not in the billions. But who knows? We really don't know, because a lot of people who get abducted by aliens probably have no idea that it's even happening to them. Only a certain percentage of these people know that it's happening to them. Only a certain percentage of those end up seeking help about it. Some of them probably just live their whole lives never telling anybody about it because they think they're afraid of what the perception will be. You have to wonder if they are going to take over. What does that mean? Okay, so I guess even before I get to that point, what I want to say is, so basically, if we go by what's going on here, the abductions, this hybridization program that Jacobs has talked about, that my anonymous source has talked about previously, is it all some kind of, it's a program basically to acclimate these beings to this planet. Okay, if we look at them, okay, most of these grays, right, it seems like they're short, diminutive types of creatures. So they come from a planet that has a different kind of gravitational pull. So they want to try to be better suited for this planet, hence this ongoing, decades, maybe centuries, ongoing hybridization program to get them to a certain level that's comfortable, that they feel comfortable with, okay, that they feel like they'll be able to survive. Again, all of this is just theory. None of this makes me right. I just want to throw that out there for anybody who's going to accuse me of fear porn or anything of that nature. Okay, it's only a theory. I'm not saying this is real. It could be. I'm saying that. So they're trying to reacclimate themselves, and once they get to this certain point, that's when they're going to basically, somehow, I don't know how they're going to go about it, but they take over, and the abductees are going to remain part of this system. Basically, it will be the insect praying mantis types at the top of the heap. Then you have the short and tall grays in the middle of the heap, and then abductees, and then the non-abductees. What are they? And they're expendable. For the feelings that expressed by some people who were abducted, according to Jacobs, was that those feelings expressed indicated that that non-abductees were going to be expendable in this new world. So let's keep that in mind. So if that's the case, does that mean they keep some of the abductees around just for the for the luxury of maybe they still need them as time goes on for hybridization purposes? Just in the event things don't go right. So they keep the abductees around. They keep breed and have them breed and continue. But again, they're just they're on the bottom of this food chain. And then, of course, non-abductees are, who knows, what's the what will they be used for? The same thing as cattle. But just to talk about, from what I've researched, there's more. I mean, there's all kind. I read an article. There's a lot of different things. There was a case in the United Kingdom some years ago where, like, at some ranch there was 14 sheep that all in one shot, just a heap of them, were all mutilated in the same manner. Tongues removed, all the blood drained, holes in the neck, one eyeball removed, an ear cut off, some of the flesh near the jaw removed, and all this done in a surgical kind of a manner. The rectum cored out, just like a lot of these cases. The descriptions of a lot of these cases, with cattle, same thing, and again. And also, there's been cases of human mutilation, and it seems like they are covered up. When bodies of humans are found like this, it seems what from my research, what I've been finding out is that people go missing, okay? But when they find these mutilated bodies, for the most part, now I've heard of a case where there was a closed casket case where a body like this was found, and the family was not allowed to see the body. A person died mysteriously. They couldn't find him for a few days, and then the body turned up. But the authorities would not let the family see the body, and they tried to claim that this person died from cocaine toxicity. But yet it was a closed casket funeral. But a lot of times, what I think what some researchers have found is that when there's human mutilation cases, they don't let the public know about those bodies at all. If this was a person who was missing, that person just stays on the missing list forever. So these are, and when you start really thinking about this is what makes this long cover up, this many years of covering this up. It just seems like this could be the reason, because the intentions of these visitors is basically they're here to feed. They're here to feed. They're here to maybe eventually take over, right? Take over this planet. A lot of times these abductees, they talk about, they're shown images of the world, of destruction and the future and the environment. I guess there is a concern. These beings are concerned with the environment because they feel like this is their future planet. Maybe they come from a place that, that maybe they're a dying breed, and they've reached a level of technological advancement that we can only dream of. We couldn't, maybe so advanced that we can't even dream of it. But they reached a level of advancement, and now, but their kind is dying out, and they're here to try to re-energize themselves, to try to figure out a way to keep themselves going. So, and that involves using us for whatever purposes they need to keep to keep themselves going. And at some point they feel like this program is going to lead them into a new life. And it doesn't matter what happens to us, meanwhile, because we're just material to them. Food, hybridization purposes, who knows what kind, but it doesn't seem like they're help, or how are they helping anybody here? I mean, people who get abducted, it's like horror stories. It's horror stories. I mean, it's no different than, say, somebody broke into your house and kidnapped you. It's no different than that. So yeah, I this is very interesting. Again, this person, I'm really glad that this person has contacted me. I think some of the theories make sense, and this one, again, it doesn't disappoint. I mean, it is disappointing in a way if that's the case. I mean, it's very disappointing. But at the same time, it gives all of us something to think about, and it provides a reason for why there's the cover-up. I mean, that's the best reason. I mean, the best reason for a cover-up would be because people aren't going to like this. If this is the case, right? Well, how would any government in the world want to try to tell the people, hey, this is what's going on. We got these insects from other planets here coming here, and they're trying to take over the world, and they're feeding on the blood of our animals, and it looks like they might be feeding on the blood of us too. I mean, well, I think that people are going to sit back. Oh, that's interesting. No, a lot of people are going to just go crazy, and that could be the reason for the cover-up.